All right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to our January virtual tasting for the Forgotten Grapes Wine Club. We are so excited to have Bret Hogan of Cote West Wines with us today. As always, we're going to have you all muted for most of the discussion. So if you have any questions, comments, we love hearing your food pairings as well, and we'll talk about that with Bret a little bit as well. But throw those into the chat. Allison and I will be monitoring those, and we'll be able to ask Bret those questions as they pop up. And of course, we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for everyone to unmute themselves and ask Bret any questions that you might want to. One other quick bit of housekeeping for those of you who are joining us and for those who are watching us on the replay on YouTube. Allison and I have a big announcement. You'll be reading more about it in our February newsletter. But after doing the Forgotten Grapes Wine Club for 4+ years now, we're going to be launching our first ever live in-person Festival of Forgotten Grapes live event. It's going to be in LA. We're still finalizing a location, but it's going to be on Saturday, June 29th from noon to 5 p.m. We're going to hopefully have 25 to 40 different wineries there from all throughout California, but all of whom will be pouring Forgotten Grape wines. So you won't find any Cab, Merlot, Chard, Pinot there. No offense, Bret. You do great jobs with those wines, but you also do some of the Forgotten Grapes like Counoise and Carignan like we're having tonight. And that's what we want our wineries to pour at that event, so we can really showcase those great, unusual, uncommon varietals. And there's also going to be a sales component. So people are going to be able to order wines at the event. Allison and I are going to bundle those together, and you'll pay a single delivery or shipping fee for the wines from the different wineries that you love at that event to take home. So we'll have more information.
And just to add, just to reiterate what we mean by Forgotten Grapes, in California, 93% of all the grapes grown are Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Syrah, Syrah, Zinfandel, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Grigio. 9 grapes make up 93% of what is planted in this state. So this festival is going to be celebrating the hundreds of other grapes that make up the 7.83% left.
Exactly. Fortunately, we've always been dedicated to those, and we've worked with a lot of wineries that are dedicated to showcasing those grapes. So we're excited to bring them to you in one space so that you'll be able to meet the winemakers, taste their wines, all in a single setting on a single day, which we're really looking forward to launching this. We think it's the next iteration of the club. So
including hopefully Bret.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Expect your email invitation tomorrow, right? With the thank you for tonight. But we'll talk more about that later. We'll have more information in our upcoming emails. And obviously, once tickets are available for the event, we're going to have a regular event ticket and also a VIP ticket as well. So we will let you know about that. But in the meantime, let's focus on our January wines and our featured winery of the month. And we are so lucky to have Bret Hogan, the founder and winemaker of Cote West Wines, here with us today. Thank you for being with us, Bret. And as we always do, let's kick off by asking you, what is the most memorable bottle of wine that you've ever opened?
All right. Well, thank you for including me on this event tonight. I really appreciate it. That's a good one to start with because I'll start with Cote West, where the name comes from. When I was a graduate student at UC Davis studying viticulture and enology, I was awarded the Tostevin Fellowship.
Wow.
Every year they send 2 graduate students to these amazing wineries in Burgundy. They change every year, and they secure the placements like 5 years prior. And so I worked in the Côte d'Or, or on the Côte d'Or, which means the Golden Slopes, in Meursault for Comte Lafont, who's like the rock star of the Chardonnay world in Burgundy. Anyways, it was an amazing experience for me. When I was a graduate student, I was making wine in like garages with all the other graduate students, and we were making all the really weird things like Vermentino and like Counoise, like the kind of off the beaten path grapes. But then after this, and I never thought I would be making Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. But after this experience, which was like really amazing, I thought it would be such a waste to not put to use what I had learned there. So anyways, so Cote West is a reference to the time that I spent on the Cote d'Or in Burgundy. And West obviously is a mention to the fact that I'm using West Coast grapes, but trying to make old world style wines. So we've kind of got one foot in the old world and one in the new. And when I was on the Cote d'Or in Burgundy, in Meursault, at Contra, it was the most amazing 5th generation winery, like tons of history. There's no access, there's no tasting room, it's not open to the public. All the wines are sold in advance before they're even made. Dominique Lafont is just this really charismatic guy. He walks into a room and everybody just wants to befriend him. And after like a long day of work on a successful harvest day, he would turn to me and say, "Okay, Bret," what? He's like, "Qu'est-ce qu'on boit? What are we drinking?" It's like, "What are you thirsty for?" And we go down an elevator underneath the winery, which is next to this big family chateau, and he had wines in there from like the late 1800s. Oh every vintage. It's all Chardonnay and Pinot Noir from these amazing vineyard sites. And he'd say, "Bret, what are we drinking tonight? What do you think?" And he, I'd be afraid to ask for the really old stuff because I mean these are kind of like family heirlooms at this point. Yeah. They're all grown, they're all covered with like,
oh, we only have one of those left, but for you, okay,
yeah,
we'll open it.
Yeah.
The 1899, but we'll
and it's all just written in chalk on these tiny little chalkboards next to whatever quantity they have. I remember he would grab these wines. So he grabbed I don't even remember the exact year. It was like 1951, 52 Chardonnay. He's like, "Let's try this. He's like, I'm just curious to check in on it." And I was expecting it to be over the hill, I moved this 70-year-old Chardonnay, and he wipes all the mold off or as much of it as he can. He opens it up and pours it in the glass, and it's like perfect Chardonnay color, like no oxidation whatsoever.
Amazing.
The pH of the juices and wines that they're making there is very different from what's in California, and so they can age really well. And the acidity is very high as well, so incredible aging potential. And he pours it in the glass, and he says, "Oh my God, smell this!" And it smelled like white truffle. It was just like crazy, it smelled like white truffle. And it was perfectly intact, like no signs of oxidation whatsoever. And that was just like one of these moments where I'm like, okay, somebody pinch me. Is this really happening? And so, yeah, that was, and I mean, it was just delicious. It was beautiful. It was like silky smooth, no, like maybe the subtlest presence of oak. It was very typical to the Meursault variety or appellation. And yeah, it was just crazy to see how such an old, especially a white wine, can hold up that long.
And what was the vintage again?
It was like the early 50s, 51, 52. I don't even remember, but it was definitely in the 50s, early 50s. And it was special because I knew that Dominique, he didn't like picking the wines that he didn't make himself. He felt like this was like of my father's or grandfather's generation. And he took the winemaking in a totally different style. And so I think he kind of, it was only on a rare occasion that he would dig down below what he had, into the older wines that he hadn't made himself. And it was this funny moment where, there's only a little bit left in the bottle towards the end. And there's like me and the other guys working the harvest there. And he goes, "Okay, well, who's going to finish this? Who's going to finish this?" And he goes, "Bret." He accepts one from farthest away. These guys are all like, French and Italian. He's like, you are surely not going to ever have this experience ever again. And I didn't know if it was a compliment that he was giving me the last bit or if it was like a slight, but I didn't care. I got to drink the last bit of the wine.
One of those like bar bonding hazing things where you get to drink the dregs of the 50, 60-year-old bottle.
Yeah. But that was the most memorable because of not just the quality of the wine, but the whole experience of going down into the depths of the cellar and picking something just covered in that mold that grows down there. It was just like visually and sensorially stimulating.
I can only imagine the description of that wine, like 18 months in New French oak and then 50 years of bottle aging.
Right.
And 100% malolactic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Totally.
Destemmed before crushing. Oh, well, go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it's not 50 years old, but it's got 5 years of age on it. Your Chardonnay that we have tonight.
Yeah, so that's a good
Yes.
segue to this. So I never thought I'd be making Chardonnay, and here I am making Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. I was working at a different winery. It was an urban winery in San Francisco, where I first was an intern, and then I became the head winemaker there. And it was a really interesting place because we had this private barrel program where we would make someone who wanted to pay for it like 1 barrel of wine. Either we would source the grapes or they would find them somewhere. And so we ended up sourcing grapes from like 35 different vineyard sites, mostly Northern California. White Hawk was down in Santa Barbara.
Yep.
But for me, it was awesome because I got access to all these different vineyards that were typically within driving distance of the Bay Area, and I was doing all the quality control, checking all the labs on the juices and the wines, and checking in on the barrels, making sure that nothing was going awry. So I got to taste a lot and discover what were truly the better vineyard sites. And when I got to this one, it was somebody else's wine that we were making for them. And I tasted this Chardonnay out of a neutral French oak barrel, and I was just like moved by it. And I thought, okay, wow, that of all the California Chardonnays that I've tasted is something that I can really work with and, try my best to make it in the style that I'd learned in Burgundy. So are we tasting this wine now?
Absolutely. We can go through it. I mean, as we go through it, I do want to kind of circle back and, connect the dots between your time in Davis, your time in Burgundy, and now. And, you said you never imagined that you'd be making Burgundian varietals now. What was your plan? What were you imagining yourself doing while you were at Davis? Were you going to work on Bordeaux? Was, your passion the lesser known and uncommon varietals? Did you want to go work for a big winery? Was it always your plan to go work at small guys? Yeah.
Chris, let's go even further back. How did you decide you wanted to be a winemaker?
There you go. That's a good question.
Yeah, well, it started with a discontent of my office job, working. I was working in it was like glorified customer support at a tech company. And then it turned more into like a salesy job, and that felt less authentic for me. I didn't really enjoy the work as much. I liked it a lot in the beginning, and then I liked it less and less each year. And so I lasted 7 years there. And like the last year, I was just really like, my heart wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of a little bit miserable going to work. It just felt like I didn't want my boss's job or my boss's job, but I kept getting promotions. But I just didn't think I wanted to be there, say 5 years from then. And so I thought, well, what's the deal? Like, what would I be happy with? And it was a good employer. So it signaled to me that it was the industry that I needed to.
Very classic quarter life crisis.
Totally. And I thought, I'm not getting any younger. So if I'm going to go back to school, like I better do that now instead of later. So at the time I was actually a home brewer. I would make, small quantities of beer in the kitchen and garage. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of that, making a physical, tangible product that you could share with people. And it was a consumable, and you could see people get pleasure out of something that I crafted with my own hands. And I thought, if I could do something like that, that would be really cool and like rewarding, fulfilling. So I actually met with a bunch of beer makers to see what their life was like. And I quickly learned that that was not for me. It's like you go in and you make a batch, you fire up the kiln, and you put the wort in, and you make a batch of beer, and you move it over to another tank and cool it down and clean up, go home, and then you come in the next morning and do the same thing year round. So I was like, that's less interesting. I liked wine at the time, but I hadn't been making it. So then I started making wine in our garage. I'd buy small lots of grapes off of like Craigslist from up in Sonoma, and driving to my place in Oakland, California. Wow.
Can you still buy grapes on Craigslist? I'm fascinated by that.
Everything. Yeah, you'll find grapes.
I'm fascinated by the vineyards who are putting their posts on Craigslist.
These are really small, like mom pop projects.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Sort of like very small vineyard without really a commercial intent.
Yeah.
The guy I bought this from, he planted his grapes there because he didn't want a highway to come through his backyard. and they were about to exercise like eminent domain to buy his land from him and put a highway through his backyard. So he planted it to grapes because he read that there's some exclusions to eminent domain, and one of them is if it's like an agricultural property, like it's more difficult for the state to intervene. So he planted it to grapes, and he avoided the highway. So
yeah, no, I've heard of his brand, NIMBY Cellars.
Mindy Cellars?
NIMBY.
Oh, NIMBY. Yeah, that's good.
Not in my backyard. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't think he was even interested in making the wine at all.
No, I know that was the joke. Yeah, that's all right.
That's who I bought the grapes from, and I started making wine. There's tons of similarities to making beer and wine. Tons of differences too.
Other than you get one shot a year as opposed to 365 plus a year.
Yeah, but that to me was exciting because you pay close attention to the weather. You're constantly watching the weather apps. You're going into the vineyards, checking the grapes, and yeah, you've got one shot each year to make multiple wines. But yeah, one shot, and every year is different. And I think we should celebrate the differences. All the vintages are different. It's not like you want to. I don't think it's a good goal to kind of try to reverse engineer whatever wine ended up working out well for you. I think you can just acknowledge that every year the weather is different, and you're going to end up with a different result, and you should embrace that.
That's very much a big brand thing to do, is have the giant binder of making the McDonald'sization of wine, trying to make the same thing every year, so it's brand specific. Sorry, Allison, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to ask how you decided to find grapes on Craigslist. Like, you were on Craigslist and found grapes, or you were seeking grapes?
I was seeking grapes. I thought, well, if I'm considering this,
male seeking grapes,
I should get some experience with it and make sure it's something that I like doing. So then, yeah, that worked out well. I totally liked it, and then I applied to UC Davis for the program in viticulture and enology. And when I was accepted, that's when I quit my job. But then I deferred my first trimester of academic studies there because I wanted to go work for a big winery to kind of make the academic part of it like resonate a little more, and also to kind of like reconfirm that this is really the life path that I want to pursue. I ended up working for Stag's Leap Wine Cellars in Napa off the Silverado Trail, and I was like,
remind me, is that the old house? Or is that the modern one owned by Antinori?
Yeah, there are two of them, if I remember correctly. There's two
Stag's Leaps. Yeah, but I always get
these
confused, the apostrophe S and the S apostrophe.
Yeah, we had the apostrophe S.
Okay.
And which one is that? French winemaker and old house, or modern and Antinori owned?
Not that one. Well, okay. They're not too far apart from each other, to be honest.
No, one's owned by Treasury and one's owned by Antinori now. But
I think was it Antinori?
It doesn't matter. You were in Napa. You were making wine there.
Yes, but I was the low man on the totem pole. I was just like power washing macro bins.
With the cellar rat, yes.
Like with a power washer and like 110-degree heat. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't let me wear my shades because it wasn't like they weren't like the right protection. You know,
you needed the wraparound Oakleys.
Yeah, but they're clear, and they were so it was like I burned up out there. Wearing a rubber suit, power washing with hot water in 110-degree days was tough work.
It's better than power washing the inside of the tank in 110-degree weathers where you have to squeeze through the door. Yeah.
And then I did other things but that gave me interesting exposure to a large commercial winery, and they were much bigger than I thought they were. Once I got there, I was just like, wow, this is this is kind of industrial winemaking. Even though they've got this great brand, they make large quantities of wine. And so I didn't think that's what I wanted to do. I knew at that point that if I were to work in wine, I wanted to work for a small winery or create my own, and not have it be that large.
Nice. So you mentioned earlier, how you really want the wines from vintage to vintage to show the characteristics, to tell the story of that particular year. So getting back to the Chardonnay, I know this is 2018. 2018 was a challenging year in Sonoma because of all the fires that were there. Now this is Sonoma Coast. Was this an area that was affected by the fires, or?
No, we were totally fine in that area. It's near Petaluma.
Okay.
It's in the Petaluma Gap, more precisely. Sonoma Coast is a huge AVA and kind of gerrymandered. But Petaluma Gap is now its own proper AVA. And Petaluma Gap is a really interesting place because there's a break in the coastal mountain range, which allows the fog to pull in, off the Pacific through that break in the coastal mountain range. And it blankets the vineyards like in the late afternoon. And then in the morning, maybe by 10 a.m., once it gets warm enough, it burns off and kind of sucks back out to the Pacific Ocean. And then again, by maybe 5, 6 p.m., the fog comes back. And there's something about this extreme shift in diurnal temperatures that causes the variety to express itself really well.
Well done. So, well done with that.
What's that?
Well done with variety.
Yes, thank you. I slowed down on that one.
Yeah, no, I could see the wheels turning in your head when you enunciated it.
Once it's in your head, it's in your head.
Yeah, so Petaluma Gap is got a really good situation going there. And there's Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that grow side by side. The Chardonnay is up on a knoll. Pinot Noir is just down below it. And yeah, I think it's an excellent site for both Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Nice. So you had kind of scouted this vineyard for a prior producer in the private barrel program. So, how did you get involved? Did you already know the owner? Did you just sort of cold call them up and be like, hey, I've tasted your grapes, they're fantastic, can I buy a couple of tons?
Well, I went through my employer at the time, the guy who owned the winery that I was working at, and I said, can you put me in contact with them? And I sourced my own contract directly with them. Yeah, so that experience was great because we made so many different wines, and it really kind of opened my eyes to what the good stuff is. And it was kind of like put me on a fast track of what to source, where it is. All the contacts were in-house, and I could reach out, make connections. Yeah, and I started making Cote West wines at this other winery while I was the head winemaker there for a bunch of other projects.
Okay. What was your first vintage of Cote West?
2014. Okay. Yeah.
And what was the other winery you were working with? Do you disclose that?
Yeah, they are no longer around. It was called Dogpatch Wineworks.
Oh yeah.
I've heard an urban winery in San Francisco, but the rent kept going like doubling and quadrupling. And then when they announced that they were going to put the Warriors just a couple blocks away, the owner could read between the lines. And he's like, time to get out of Dodge.
Yeah. So why have a winery when I can have a Roots Chris Steakhouse or whatever it might
be?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 2014, so, as you're starting up, it sounds like things are starting to kind of close down from that job. Were you thinking about getting another job, or at this point, were you committed to Cote West full time?
Well, no, I continued there for a few years.
Okay.
And the guy who owned the business, I think instead of improving my salary, he wanted to give me something intangible that didn't cost him anything. He said, listen, I'll let you make your own wine on the side. And, we'll give you no production fees. Because like a typical custom crush facility would charge a client for every ton you bring in X thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I'm not going to charge you, but you got to do all the work, buy your own barrels and tanks and all that. And that's how I started Cote West.
Okay.
And then my wife and I were living in Oakland, and that commute was pretty bad. It was only 9 miles door to door, but it would take me an hour to get there, and sometimes more if I was competing with traffic from the AT&T ballpark.
Yeah.
So it was just like really kind of like painful. So I was looking for a location in the East Bay, and I saw for like a few years I was looking, and then this space here opened up. And I took a look at it, and it kind of resonated with me, and we pulled the trigger on. We took over the lease. There's a winemaker who was here before. We're in the tasting room now. The barrel room and production facility is just through that door. And yeah, the production facility is great. It's like 5,000 square feet, sloped floors, trench drains, skylights, temperature control, roll-up doors, like lots of power. Yeah, it's a really good spot for production.
Yeah. And what I've always found interesting is there's a really fascinating history of urban winemaking in that Oakland Alameda area. You have I mean, Periscope Cellars was there. I know Urban Legend, I believe Stage Left, Dash Cellars was there for a bit. Of course, Rosenblum, and then Shauna Rosenblum's Rockwall Winery was on Alameda for quite a bit. So there's been a real, I mean, kind of burgeoning urban wine trail on that side of the bay, it seems like.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Rosenblum is credited with kind of being the first one to like make it work successfully. But also in Berkeley, there's quite a few over there. Yeah, there are buildings there that have been wine's been made in them for like over 100 years.
Wow. Nice. I know they tried to do there were a few wineries on Treasury Island as well.
Yeah,
but,
they're still out there.
Oh, are they? Okay, nice. Yeah. Just a whole fascinating history of urban winemaking in the Bay Area that not a lot of people think of it as a wine region, but there are, there's a fair amount, probably a couple of dozen, 3 dozen wineries in the general vicinity, I would imagine.
I think that sounds right. And it seems logistically crazy up to some people, but it's not so crazy. Like when I was working at Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, we were in Napa, and there were vineyards that they would source from that were a longer drive within Napa than I make going from Oakland to, say, Petaluma Gap. I can get there in 35 minutes from Oakland. And this Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, they were looking at like a 50-minute drive to get to a vineyard and back. So we're actually closer, even though we're like in an urban environment.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Go ahead.
Okay. No. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, living in Paso Robles, I've started seeing that with especially people who live in like Morgan Hill, San Jose, or some of the Southeast Bay areas, where it's actually faster for them or more convenient to drive down to Paso Robles than it is to drive up to Sonoma and Napa for a weekend of wine tasting. It might be a little longer, but you're not stuck in traffic and with tolls and whatnot. So it's interesting how the drive affects everybody. Go ahead, Allison.
No, I was just going to ask, when you started Cote West in 2014, did you start with one grape variety? Did you start with 3 different ones? What was your focus with Cote West?
Well, I think to me that was clear what to do, just coming from Burgundy, especially with the name Cote West. I started with Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
The 2 grapes you never thought you would make.
Exactly. And the following year, in 2015, I added Sauvignon Blanc because I got access to this amazing Sauvignon Blanc vineyard in Russian River Valley. It's excellent vineyard. And then in 2016, I added a rosé of Counoise. So this red Counoise we're going to taste in a little bit.
Yes.
Normally we put that to rosé, but in 2019 we decided to tinker around with making a red out of it.
And not to get ahead to the Counoise, but since 2019, are you tinkering with the red more, or was that a one-time thing?
You know what? That's been a one-time thing, just because the rosé of Counoise is really popular, and we've got kind of like steady buyers in like really nice high-end wine shops. So there's kind of a home for that, and everybody likes it in the tasting room. I think it's great for rosé, and the Counoise grape is super unique. So I think whether it be a red or a rosé, there's going to be some cachet and appeal to it. But I actually, I continue to make rosé out of it. But this is tasting great, and it's like aging well. So it wouldn't be totally crazy to see it again in a future lineup.
Yeah.
And then in 2017 you added 2016 you added rosé of Counoise, and then you've added Grenache since and Carignan.
Yep, 2017 came Grenache. 2018 was our first year in this facility in Oakland, and we added a bunch of stuff then. We currently have like 13 wines on offer.
You're getting way ahead of us, Allison, and you're killing questions on my list that I was going to ask. So let's before we get to the Counoise, let's finish up with this Chardonnay because it's really, really nice. Were you trying to emulate or using some of the techniques that you learned in Burgundy on this wine when you were making it and in your Chardonnay program? Or were you really trying to kind of branch out from it and make a more California expression of Chardonnay?
I really wanted to just try to use the exact same methods and techniques that I learned in Burgundy with this Chardonnay. So I processed it the same way. It's 100% whole cluster, direct to press, press off the juice. We put it to, we give it a cold settle of about a day or two, just based on the clarity of the wine after it settles. You can look at the NTUs, or you can put it in a glass and just look at it with your eyes and make a determination if it needs 1 or 2 days of cold settling at the exact same temperature that Contra did, and then rack it to a tank, and then let that ferment at a very specific temperature, same temperature used in Meursault. And then what's interesting with that is usually you let a wine go dry in tank, but one thing that was unique at Contra was that we'd get down to about 0 bricks. White wines will go down to like negative 1.6.
Right.
And reds will go down, or no, whites will go even lower.
Yeah, I was gonna say they'll go to like 2 or 3 or whatnot.
Sometimes they get yeah, I've seen them go down as low as like negative 2.7, a white, like Sauvignon Blanc. But when you get to 0, you're not finished. You're like maybe 90% of the way done. It's still like actively fermenting, but it's settled down. It's way past peak fermentation. And that's when we rack it to barrel. We do gravity fed, no pump, and send it to barrel. And then when you get down to the fine lees in tank, you don't know how much you have until you rack that out. So we put it to a different tank, then we measure the quantity, and then we divide that by the number of barrels we have, and we give each barrel its proper allocation of fine lees. Okay. And that is what is important, I think, in Chardonnay, because you have so little going on in white wine. You don't have tannin, you don't have the skins on fermentation, and I think it's the lees that give it its body, the richness. And so most people will just rack that into the last barrel and that'll be chock full of lees, but we don't do that. It takes longer, but I think it's better for the wine overall.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very painstaking, but it sounds like that's the way they did it at Lafon, and you're emulating that. Are you doing any batonnage or stirring of the lees?
No stirring. Okay. The only reason why we would do that is if we were having trouble getting it through malolactic fermentation. So just leave it in barrel, let it go dry, and then in the spring sometime, maybe late spring, we'd rack it off its lees to another barrel, and then we age it for 18 months in oak, not 100% new oak, but about 30% new oak. And we use the same cooper that Comte Lafon uses on his Chardonnay. It's from this barrel maker, Dami. They're actually made in Meursault. I
would say that anyone who questions Chardonnay, just taste this one, because this is why you want to drink Chardonnay. It's textured, it's rich, it's bright, it's acidic, it's full mouth, but it's why Chardonnay is gorgeous.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity going on in this glass. I mean, I'm getting like taffy flavors, I'm getting some butterscotch, obviously the citrus, the apple. The mouthfeel is just rich and luxurious. I mean, it feels like kind of velvet. It's just, it would be very interesting to do all credit to you to do a Judgment of Paris 2023 2024 with this wine, and to blind put it up against some French wines, because I think there are so many aspects of it. Along those lines, what have you found are the grapes in the Petaluma Gap? I mean, are they receptive to these same French techniques, or have there been some little tweaks that you've had to make simply because of just the nature of the California terroir?
Yeah, that's a good question. The one change I did make was in 2019, where I stopped aging it like over harvest. We used to age it for, really it was like 18 to 20 months before bottling, just before the 2 harvests later. And so I stopped doing that, and I would just let it sit in barrel for about 9 months, just because the pH is different, right? We're not working with like 2.9 pH wines. We're more like in the 3.4 area. And so that changes a lot of things on like aging potential and oxidation pickup in barrel. So now, yeah, that's the one and only change that I've made, is where all those wines that we made in Rousseau were in barrel for almost 2 years. I don't let it go that long. I let it go about 8 or 9 months.
That's interesting. Is it more the environmental conditions, just the higher levels of heat there and the barrel expanding and contracting a little bit more that add to that oxidation, or just?
I think it comes down to the pH. At
Okay.
higher pHs, things are going to age more quickly than at lower pHs.
Got it.
And you know, we all of our wines are minimal intervention. We use very little sulfur, if at all. We have some wines we don't even add any sulfur. There is a touch of sulfur on this, and you know, I wouldn't want to put more. And I think if you're going to keep it in barrel for almost 2 years, you're going to be required to add more sulfur. Yeah. And I didn't want to do that.
Interesting. Sandy, to answer your question, the lees are basically the expended yeast cells during the primary fermentation. So once those yeast have served their purpose and eat through all of the sugars in the wine and left behind their carbon dioxide and alcohol, their byproducts, they tend to settle in the bottom of the barrel as kind of a sediment. And some winemakers, especially with white wines, will leave the wine on the lees, which in French is called sur lees. You'll actually see that on bottles, especially things like Muscadet and some Chardonnays. Or they'll stir it up, which is called batonnage, to add more body and more flavor by reintegrating those cells back into the wine.
And a more basic word than expanded is they're dead yeast.
Yeah, dead yeast cells if you want to, but
they add texture, and so you can even have a wine, a Chardonnay that sees no oak or neutral oak that has a lot of texture, and it's because of time on the lees or the integration of the lees and the batonnage, as Chris was explaining.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll even occasionally see some red wines that are done that way, Pinot Noirs especially, because they can be very thin. So keeping them on their lees will just add body and texture to the wine if you want to kind of boost things up there. So I know, Bret, we've already had one food pairing. We love to talk about our food pairings with the wines here. Jeannie and Mike Kataoka, who are resident vegans, said the Chard paired really well with a lemon pepper tofu, za'atar white bean puree, and caper vinaigrette. That is that's quite a complex dish there, and sounds delicious. But what are some of the food pairings that you normally would put with this Chardonnay?
Yeah, I think so. For me, it used to be crab cakes, and this Chardonnay was like my happy spot. Still, that's wonderful, but I found that just a simple roast chicken with salt and pepper, it's got the fattiness that the Chardonnay, because it's got high acid, it can cut through that. And I just think, that's just an amazing combination. It's one of those meals where you start with a knife and fork, and eventually you have to get your hands in there and your Chardonnay glass is covered with chicken fat by the end of the night. Yeah, that's just like a sublime combo.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. I could also definitely sort of leaning into not the lemon, but the pepper portion of it, like a cacio e pepe pasta would be phenomenal with this. Some sort of, combination of pasta, butter, noodles, a little bit of pepper. Mike and Jeannie, there's a fantastic vegan cacio e pepe spice blend that we'll have to let you know about, but just even a traditional cacio. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Allison?
Cacio and pepe.
Cacio e pepe. Okay, because it's just one C in the middle, and I'm used to the two C's being the cacio. But
because it's not the C's, it's the CI, because CI in Italian is cha, and CH in Italian is ca, because they don't have a letter K.
Interesting.
So, all right. There you go.
Thank you.
Actually, you get CCIO for right. But CIO is cho.
Got it. So cacio e pepe.
Cacio e pepe.
See, but the roasted chicken sounds phenomenal too. It's a shame Scott Scott and Kelly Morris aren't here, they're our resident Costco Kirkland obsessies. So we'd have to have them pair the Kirkland roast chicken with this Chardonnay the next time they go.
But I'd say like any white fish, anything with lemon in it, because there's notes of lemon here, pair that with. Yeah, I think it's a very food friendly wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, shrimp lemon scampi. There you go. Matt paired this with shrimp lemon scampi, which also sounds delicious as well. So nice. Big thumbs up there. Excellent. Well, let's move on to the Counoise. And so this will, Allison didn't steal all my thunder, but moving from Burgundy to the Rhones, how did that happen? How did you was Counoise something that you sought out for a rosé rather than doing a like a rosé of Pinot Noir or some of the grapes that were at your disposal? Or how did you decide to kind of dip your toe and eventually, dunk your whole body into the Rhone varietals?
So I remember tasting Senso in a tasting group at UC Davis, and I just thought it was like amazing.
That's my favorite, just so you know. Counoise is third, but Senso is my absolute favorite of all time.
And I thought that the Senso would make an amazing rosé. So I was on the hunt for Senso, but there wasn't a lot of that out there. There's a good amount out in Lodi, but I wasn't interested in working in that.
The world's oldest Senso vines in Lodi, the Bechtold Vineyard.
Bechtold Vineyard, yeah. So I was asking around to some of my fellow winemakers if they knew of any Senso anywhere, and kind of hit a wall. But one of my friends said, well, I know someone who's got Counoise, and like from what I hear, that sounds very similar to Senso. So I was, that piqued my interest, and so she put me in contact, and I drove out to the vineyard in Dry Creek Valley and watched the rows with the vineyard owner, and he said that he had made like a keg's worth of it, because he put it into a blend, but he did want to see how it would turn out, and so he made a rosé out of it. And he gave me a bottle, and it was like cloudy, and it had a lot of body. I remember that. It was like, a lot of structure, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
I was not going to let mine go through malolactic fermentation, so I thought it would be a little bit leaner and brighter. And like I thought his was okay. I think ours is great. It's different though. When you're making a small quantity of wine, it's hard to make it turn out right. Once you get a little bit larger, you got more tools at your disposal. Yeah.
But you saw the potential.
I saw the potential. Yes. I saw the potential, and I knew how I could change it to make it better. Yeah. So that's how I got into that. And it's interesting though, when he planted the Counoise, so I first bought it in 2017, but it had only been in the ground for 5 years. So it was probably planted in 2012.
Oh, wow. So very young.
Very young. And he told me that they thought they were planting Senso and not Counoise, because they wanted to plant Senso. Then he said after it was in the ground for like 3 years, he got a call from the nursery that quarantined the cuttings that they brought in. And they said, hey, we just found something out, and we thought we should let you know. They're like, you might want to sit down before you hear this, but what we sold you as Senso, we're now very confident is Counoise, because they perfected their DNA identification process. And so they're like, we are very confident that is not Senso, and you've got Counoise. And he went ballistic. He was so mad, because it's a huge project, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely. And he clearly had his heart set on Senso. So
yeah. And so he said, though, at the end of the day, that it all kind of worked out to his favor, because he never would have considered planting Counoise, and it actually turned out quite nice.
And you know what? Applaud him, because did you know that in the state of California, there are only 65 acres of Counoise, and of that, 59 of them are bearing fruit. So there is so little.
Yeah. Wow. Because I did the math on that once. I'm guessing you got that out of the Grape Crush report?
Yeah, the acreage report, yeah.
Yeah, so I looked at that too, and I thought, okay, wow, we get almost 3 tons of Counoise, and it's like maybe 1.5 tons per acre out there.
Yeah.
So that means we get 2 acres of Counoise on 59 that are planted and bearing fruit.
Yeah.
So call that 2 out of 60, that's 1 out of 30. So we get about 3% of California's Counoise, and we're a tiny, tiny, tiny winery.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's amazing.
it's one of those things that sort of breaks my heart that there's so little of it. But what's nice is the people who know it and make it, you know, are obsessed with it. So it's something that will never go away, which is nice. But, you know, we might see it dwindle further, but I think it feels like there's become more of a demand for these lesser known varietals, especially among younger winemakers, smaller winemakers who have more passion projects where, you know, they want to do a barrel or 2 barrels, get a ton or 2 tons of this and work with it. Is that something you're seeing? I mean, it sounds like you have a great relationship with this winery, but, you know, have you seen more competition for the Counoise as time has elapsed?
Yeah, I've noticed other like fellow winemakers who have like taken a liking to my Counoise, and now they're all trying to source it. I tried to buy more of it because we would sell out of the Counoise, the rosé, like, and I was like, well, we should make more. And the vineyard I get it from, he gives about half of it to me, and he keeps the other half, so I can't get any more from there. And
So you get 2 acres, so he has 4 acres.
yeah, he's probably got 4 acres, and I get 2. He keeps 2. And then there's another guy. Do you know Fritz? F-R-Z? He grows some Counoise, and that's in a similar area. So I contacted him and I said, "Hey, any chance you'd be willing to sell Counoise?" And he politely declined. He said, "I'm happy keeping it."
Wait, is it Fritz or Frick? Because I know Bill Frick, who's in the Dry Creek Valley, but the northern end, he also grows it as well. But
I thought it was Fritz, but you're probably right.
I mean, it could, because there is Fritz Family Cellars, but my understanding was they're fairly large. But I don't know. Yeah, not to. You're the winemaker. You know better than I do. Bill Frick he's the one who introduced me to Counoise and Cinsault, and has been on my Mount Rushmore of forgotten grapes since I got into the business.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Well, that's crazy. There's a Frick and Fritz, both in Dry Creek Valley, both growing Counoise.
If that's the case, then yes, it would be shocking. But then again, there are, you know, approximately 937 wineries that have the word oak in their title in California. So, you know.
Yeah, but oak is far more generic than Frick and Fritz.
Well, as opposed to 2 wineries separated by 1 apostrophe in terms of Stag's Leap and Stag's Leap.
But that is because they both say they're the original in the area, and in the end, they won. The agreement was they could differentiate by where the apostrophe is, and they could both take credit.
It reminds me of Famous Original Rays and Original Famous Rays in New York. So,
so Bret, for this, can you tell us about the fruit? What are the vines like? I mean, what is Counoise like on the vine, and then when you pick it?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to stop you there and let you know it's Counoise.
Counoise.
How to pronounce the S, yes.
Everybody says Counoise. But in French, because there's the E at the end of the S, you pronounce it like a Z. So Counoise, but more than half of wine.
She's great at Italian, here, shit at French, Bret.
Absolutely.
But it can be like a heavily cropped vine. Mm-hmm. The clusters are huge. Yeah. They're big. They're really big, and the berries are big. Yes.
Cinsault is the same way. Cinsault can be huge berries if you let them go, and it can be a really vigorous vine, that will produce a massive amount of grapes if you don't green harvest and prune it properly.
Yeah. So yeah, when they're loading up the bins, the pick happens really fast because each cluster is like huge contribution to the bin. But they're young vines. They're like what? They are 11 years old now, going on 12. But and they're planted on devigorating rootstock, and the soils are poor there, which is kind of a good thing. Makes the vines struggle, and they express a lot of like flavor and aromatics as a result. Yep. It's rocky red soils with a lot of volcanic deposits. Beautiful vineyard. And we take this. Can I tell you about the production?
Absolutely.
So we typically with reds, I like to de-stem all of it. I'm not a huge fan of stem inclusion, but with this, I kind of wanted to like up the sort of spiciness and the fruitiness. So I did like 15% whole cluster at the bottom of the fermentation tanks, basically just like a lay like two or three layers of clusters on the bottom of the tank. And then we destemmed all the other fruit and dropped that in, like rained that in over top. And it looks like a sea of caviar on top. But then you've got at the bottom, we've got a base of whole cluster down there. And so those will ferment carbonically. Like the fermentation will take place within the cell walls of each grape.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that causes it lifts the fruitiness in the wine and kind of adds like a playfulness to reds. And then the stems, of course, adds like a spiciness to the wine. So there's a little bit of that, a little bit of carbonic effect in this wine here. And then we let it go dry. Then we put it to barrel and we press it off. And we keep the press and the free wine barrels separately. They just kind of develop differently on their own. We fully intend to blend them together at the end. The press barrels can be really expressive. Some people say, oh, you press wine should maybe go to like a lower tier label. I don't buy that at all. I think it's kind of like a spice rack that you have in your cellar. Those barrels, they've got like a lot of body, deep aromatics. So I'm a proponent of always blending the free run and the press wine.
So why did you decide to make a red wine in 2019 if the rosé is such a success?
Well, I'll tell you why. In 2018, it was our first year in this facility, and I've had so much space. I wasn't, I wanted to go big, and our rosé program did so well before that I wanted more, right? I tried to buy more Counoise to make more rosé of Counoise. I couldn't get it. So I made 3 rosés: rosé of Grenache, rosé of Counoise, and a rosé of Zinfandel.
Oh.
And half of our production was rosé that year, which was way too much rosé.
That's a lot of rosé, yeah.
We did so much rosé.
It's kind of a ticking clock on that.
Yeah, nobody wants to buy old rosé. So you got to sell it or you got a problem. And so in 2019, I said, yikes, we can't make more rosé, but I don't want to walk away from the contract on the Counoise because
somebody will snatch it up.
Yeah, and you need it to be a consistent buyer. You can't opt in and opt out every other year. So that is the real reason why we made Counoise a red wine that year. But I often got the question, what do you think this would be like as a red wine? So I was curious as well. So for both reasons, it just made sense to make a red wine with the Counoise.
So how long is the maceration on this? Because one of the things I've noticed is I've had a lot of Counoise because it is one of my favorites. And, this one is very lean. It's got that translucence to it. It's definitely has that kind of steelier, leaner body. I've had some that are lusher, and I'm wondering if that's the maceration time. Obviously, it's a very thin-skinned grape. The color on it is light, so it's not picking up a tremendous amount of tannins and body to it. But I imagine some extra maceration would add a richness, or maybe that's the pressed fruit adds more of that body to it.
For me, I think the richness comes from longer hang time on the vines.
Oh, okay.
So the higher the sugars go up, the closer you get to that jammy profile. I mean, you can pick well before you're going to get jam, but each day past, say, 22 bricks in that high heat period,
yeah, you're
building up that sort of richness, and even on a dry wine, but if it's out there till 24, 25, 26 bricks, it's going to give you a perception of sweetness, even though it's dry wine. But even the taste and even sometimes the smell suggests sweetness, even though it's dry. So we tend to harvest the grapes earlier than most people. Like when we are in a vineyard that's shared by multiple winemakers, we are often the first ones to start picking, because we're trying to make our wines in the old world style, where the alcohols are lower, the natural acidities are higher, the color is going to be less dark. So I think that would explain why ours is leaner than the others.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Have you thought about talking to your grower about, maybe allowing for more yield on the acres he's got, bumping it up just so you've got more fruit, especially if there's an interest in it?
like I asked him to graft over stuff more to more Counoise.
Or if he's only doing a ton and a half, seeing if, because I don't know if that's just the natural yield of those vines, or if he could get it up to 2 or 3 tons per acre, just by reducing the pruning, reducing the green harvesting.
I think he's a really good farmer. I trust what he's doing is right, and he will thin the vines on an as needed basis. If there's a high humidity and mold pressure, they'll thin the vines. I kind of feel like that's his domain. I talk with him about it all the time.
Yeah,
I don't interfere.
I mean, you wave a few Benjamin in his face and say, "Hey, if you can get this up to well, 2.5 tons, I'll take the."
But maybe that
excess.
sacrifices the quality of the grapes.
I don't know. I'm a capitalist, so I love Counoise. I want more Counoise in this world, so I want to find ways to get more Counoise out there to the public, and especially to me.
Go to UC Davis in the middle of the night and swap out the Cinsault for Counoise.
Apparently, I'm just going to have to buy some acreage and plant it with nothing but Cinsault and Counoise, and just be like, overnight, I've added 20% extra Counoise to the entire state of California.
Yeah, but that's good. I'm really happy with where that is right now.
Yeah,
no, you should be.
It's beautiful.
It's all neutral French oak. I just think it's such like a delicate grape, really pretty aromatics. You wouldn't want to cover that up with any new oak.
No, I think Counoise and Cinsault are both grapes to me that need to be in absolute neutral as possible barrels to really let that natural acidity shine through.
What else on that? It's unfined, unfiltered. I mean, look at how clear it is. It's like for some reason this just clarifies really well on its own.
But I don't know about you guys. I've got a little bit of a little bit of sediment in there too. But
that is from, we store our wines on the corks upside down. We don't cold stabilize red wines. So you're going to get some tartrate settling out at the bottom of the vessel, and the bottom of the vessel for us is the cork.
Right.
Upside down to keep the corks.
Because it came out with the first pour.
Exactly. So whenever I open wines that show that, I just have like over a sink or over a dump bucket, I kind of turn the bottle like this. And if I do my job right, I don't even lose a drop of wine. But if you just wet those things, then they fall to the bottom of the bottle, and you won't get them in your glass. When you're pouring the last bit of the bottle, just don't dump that out.
Yeah, it adds character to it. I know before we jumped on the chat or invited everybody else in, we were talking a little bit about food pairings with this one, because Allison was going to pair this with some salmon, which sound.
Allison did pair it with salmon. Allison got started before the Zoom. Opened up the bottle of wine and had it with her early dinner, because I've been licking my lips wanting to try this Counoise.
Nice.
So I had it with some roasted potatoes, baked salmon, and a little broccoli. And I have to say, I really liked it with the salmon. There was something, it just was this lovely balanced pairing, and the kind of dusty tannins were perfect with the salmon. It was great.
Nice.
So, and do you pair Pinot Noir with salmon?
I do. I also agree with Chardonnay and salmon. I'm not limited, but if I do a Pinot Noir with salmon, I'm doing more of a light bodied Pinot.
Yeah.
But I'll also do a Gamay with salmon or a Grenache.
Yeah, I was going to say, given the fatty, oily nature of salmon, I think you can you can do a red that's got just a little more heft. So like a Cinsault, a Counoise would be fantastic. I think we'll talk about this in a second, but even your Grenache, because it is a lighter style Grenache, but it's got a lot of spice and interesting components, could be really interesting with the salmon.
Yeah, personally, I think pairing red wines with salmon, even if they're lighter reds, is weird.
What about tuna? What about like ahi tuna? Do you think reds should go with that, or are you in the same?
I think definitely a white wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc.
You're so French.
I don't know why, but
très français, Brett.
To me, that just seems like common logic. But I know there's a whole bunch of people who pair Pinot Noir with salmon. I'm not one of them.
Yes.
And so Matt paired it with shrimp and sausage jambalaya.
That
Sounds
sounds
delicious.
insane, especially since you mentioned this has such that spicy component to it. I can absolutely see that. Now I desperately want some shrimp and sausage jambalaya. So yeah, I agree. That's how much I want it. Nice. Yeah, no, this is wonderful. And again, not that our vote counts, but we are all voting in favor of you making more red Counoise.
Although, in fairness, we have not tried his rosé of Counoise because we may think it's so incredible.
I do not doubt its deliciousness. I'm just saying that there is room for both of those. And I think, beg, borrow, and steal to get your hands on more Counoise to produce a red version of it. I think it will be a winner, and you will find an audience for it. It is if you produce it, they will come. If you ferment it, they will come.
Yeah, so Brett, just snap your fingers and make, another 59 acres appear. Nothing.
There's got to be somebody in like Arizona or Texas growing it that we can have it trucked in.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's move on to your Grenache, the most recent wine of yours, and again, kind of continuing your experimentation, your dabbling, your jumping into the Rhone varietal. So, how did you make the decision to bring Grenache into the fold from the same vineyard as the Counoise? So, I imagine that had something to do with it.
Well, this is kind of a funny conversation, actually. The grower, I was talking with him, and I was like, "Hey, so I'm on the lookout for some Grenache. I want to bring Grenache into my program because we at the time I felt like a lighter red, a lighter non-Pinot Noir red would complement our offering really well. So I was like, hey, do you got any connections on Grenache? Like, who should I be talking to about Grenache? And he says, are you kidding me? I said, what? He's like, we're known for Grenache. He's like, our Grenache is like what we're most known for. I said, I had no idea. It's like, I didn't even know you grew Grenache. All I knew is that you had Counoise, and that's why I came up here, a couple of years ago, and we sorted that out. And he's like, yeah, he's like, our Grenache is the best. He's like, normally there's a long waiting list for it. He's like, but I got one buyer who he's kind of pissing me off because I don't know if he was late on a payment or something, or he didn't respond to his email when he says, hey, are you in? Can you confirm you're going to take your 3 tons of Grenache this year?
Kiss of death.
Hear from him for a while, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm deciding right now. He's out. He's like, if you want it, it's yours. And I was like, well, tell me a little bit more about it. And he kind of convinced me. He was speaking so passionately about it, and Mount's Vineyard grows like 26 different varieties.
Wow.
And the Grenache is his favorite. So David Mounts signs all his emails, even though he's growing 26 different varieties. At the footer of his email, it says, in Grenache we trust, David Mounts. His permanent footer. So I think I kind of lucked out on that one. And he is known for serious Grenache. And they make wines. They're Mounts Vineyard, Mounts Family Winery is what it's called. They make some wines in a wholly different style than I do. So it's really interesting. I always bring them the wines that I make. We swap a case of things. And he gave me some of his Grenache, and he like keeps his in barrel. We keep ours in barrel for like 9 months. We pick it way earlier than him. Ours has this like lovely natural acidity, and look at the color of it, right? It's not so dissimilar from the Counoise.
Yeah, that's what's amazing is if you put these side by side and spun them around like a shell game, somebody would be hard pressed to tell the difference between these two wines.
Yeah. So he picks his, like, I pick mine at about 23 bricks, and he'll pick his at like 26.
Okay.
And then 3 bricks difference, maybe even 27. And his is dark as can be. It looks like a port, and it smells like a port too. And he puts new oak on it. And he keeps it in barrel, I think, for 2 years, so it does pick up some like oxidation. And so his is like a port. Wow. And it's got a bunch of tannin. He does something weird where he destems the fruit and then takes the stems and dries them out on his crush pad, like concrete area.
Oh, and like a Rapasso style with the stem inclusion. Interesting.
Yeah, he dries them out for, I don't know, a day, 2 or 3. And then he's trying to get the greenness out of the stems, which is interesting. Because the greenness can add, green kind of bell pepper notes.
Oh yeah.
So then, if I were to do that here in Oakland, like they wouldn't be there the next day or telling me, what did you do with all your green waste? You just scattered it on the sidewalk, and
You'd find a weird van selling,
might find
little
some,
bags of,
yeah, might find someone sleeping on a bed of stems, or dogs would pee on it. So we don't have that option. But then he takes those stems and then shoves them into the ferment. So his has a bunch of tannin as well. It's like wildly different. And he thinks like that I'm making this ridiculous Grenache. And then I told him, I was like, hey, I just want to share with you that I was drinking the Grenache, and I noticed my whole tasting room staff at the end of the shift, they can drink whatever's open, and they are all drinking the Grenache. And it was just having this real high moment. And I happened to be reading an invitation to an international like wine sommelier competition. It was down in San Diego. And I was like, you know what? I never do this, but I'm gonna enter this Grenache. There are over 1,000 wines there, like 89 Grenache from all over the world, domestic and abroad, and we took first place.
Wow!
And I wanted to share that with them, and I sent them the certificate. I said, just thought you should know, you grew this, like you grew it, I made it. We should both celebrate. And then he laughed and he goes, well, he's like, I'm certainly doing something wrong, whatever I'm doing, because like he was having a hard time selling his Grenache, and I'm like, I'm sold out. He's like, I think I should be taking notes from you. He's a good guy.
Yeah, it's always one of the fascinating things about Grenache is how I think, even more so than Cabernet Sauvignon, it is the grape that can be produced in the widest range of styles you can have. I mean, I've seen some even lighter and fresher and more like fresh strawberry jam than yours, and yours is definitely on the lighter end of the spectrum. And then you get into the the Spanish Garnacha, which sounds closer to the style that he's preparing, which is the definitely more tannic, rich, like heavy. Even some of the Gigondas and like Vaccarat Grenache led Rhone Village or Rhone style wines there. So it's just it's such a versatile grape.
Yeah. Totally. It's like Chardonnay, how it can be expressed so differently based on who's growing it and who's making it. I think is even the bigger factor.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this Grenache we do. This is true and not true, but we do absolutely nothing to the Grenache. We destem it, let it ferment in open fermentation vessels, native yeast, and then when it's getting almost dry, we press it off. We put it in neutral French oak, so no new oak. Same reasons of Counoise, just don't want to cover up any of that beautiful fruit. And then the one thing that we do, where we do intervene a little bit, is we do a little batonnage to build up the body. On the palate, it's kind of like velvety, smooth. There's lots of texture there, and that's what we're accomplishing by, I think, what you had explained. I can't remember if it was Chris or Allison explained how you build up the body by stirring the dead yeast cells up into solution. They don't make their way into the wine, but they impart this rich textural body component, and that's what we do here. And it was funny, one of my friends had his son in the winery who was all of like, I don't know, 6 years old, and he was bored, and I was trying to give him something to do. I was like, here, it's like, stir the lees, just take this metal stick with a little funny thing on the end of it, put it in the barrel,
move it around,
yeah, stir it all around, like you can't mess it up. And he did it. So I shared that award with him, and I said, look what your son helped me accomplish.
Oh, that's terrific. So, you came from Davis, you studied in Burgundy. Was there a style that you were emulating to make this? Or, what was, when you got the Grenache, like, was it in your mind to make this lighter style, or was it simply just a matter of kind of experimentation over the years to do this? I
met with a friend who used to make wine at that facility, Dogpatch Wineworks, and then she broke off and started her own winery in Sonoma. And I just asked her, it was like after harvest, things were slowing down. I was like, I want some perspective on things. I just want to see what other people are doing. Like, can I come up there to your facility? I want to see it, and can we taste through what you're making? She makes a bunch of different wines, and we tasted through 20 barrels or something. And we got to the Grenache that she made. It was like really pale and incredibly expressive. And I just had that real rich textural component to it, and I just
Yeah.
fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what we need to add to our program. I was like, I want to make Grenache now. So she kind of convinced me to do it. She was buying her Grenache from Clarksburg, and I wanted to continue sourcing from Sonoma. So that's why I was asking David Mounts where to find Grenache. It turned out it was like, look over your shoulder, it's right there.
Right, exactly. Have you not seen the bottom of my emails?
Yeah, but yeah, and we don't do anything to it. We just try not to mess it up. It's unfined, unfiltered, very little sulfur, and so it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't feel like I should really be taking a lot of credit for it. I think that it's just grown really well, and we don't mess it up.
Yeah, no, it's a spectacular wine, and yeah, so many. I mean, between this and the Counoise, you can really see your winemaking style. And I suspect if we threw one of your Pinot Noirs in here as well, we'd be able to really track your winemaking style in terms of that light body, translucent color, high acidity, but still very spicy, very flavorful style of wine.
Yeah, and because we pick at a lower bricks, we don't have to like add water. There's a lot of most wineries in California, they're picking at higher bricks, but then the wines would turn into like 15 to 18% alcohol.
Yeah.
So they're adding water to knock the alcohol back, but you're also diluting the wine. You're losing concentration.
Oh, clearly you have not spent a lot of time in the Paso Robles area, where 15 to 18% is the norm, my friend.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm guessing those guys are picking where it would be like 19, 20% if it wasn't for their water additions.
Well, it depends. I mean, the problem is everybody's trying to hold on to what they get. But yeah, picking at 26, 27, 28 bricks is definitely the norm around this area. So I imagine, again,
They're
you're
not
picking.
known for their cool climate Grenache.
That is true. That is true. Although you can find some of the leaner style Grenaches, depending on the producers and the regions and whatnot. One of the interesting things before we jump into the food pairings and whatnot, all of these single varietal wines, is that what you're focused on? Do you do any blends? Is blending something you're interested in, or is it much more the expression of these individual grapes?
To me, I think it's much more interesting to make a single varietal wine. That's
Yes.
correct, varietal.
Yep.
Because you have sort of a benchmark for quality. And so when you're drinking a Sauvignon Blanc, a Chardonnay, you can compare it to, you've had probably hundreds of them, and you kind of like know what you're looking for. You kind of know how to grade it, if you will. And to me, I think that's way more interesting than making a blend. Now, we have made one blend, but it's only because I was concerned about like one component, and I just thought it needed to be softened up. And that is actually the Carignan, which we're going to move to. I don't want to rush us yet, but I'll get into that story when we get there. But yeah,
Yes.
For me, single vineyard, single variety, varietal wines are much more interesting. I think you've got a target and something to compare it to, and you're expressing this beautiful thing that comes from this subspecies of Vitis vinifera, and they're all so different. I think that's like super cool and interesting.
Yeah, color me intrigued by that tease. But before we get there, you made wine in Burgundy. I know it's always tough for winemakers because you have such a compressed schedule, but have you had a chance to do some traveling to other regions in France or other parts of the world to do some tasting in other places, kind of pick up new styles, new techniques?
Yeah, so I spent a few years in France, and when I was an undergrad, I spent a year and a half in France on two different study abroad programs. One was in the Loire Valley in Angers, and the other one was in Paris. And especially when I was in the Loire Valley, we did a ton of wine tasting, and this was well before I ever even thought to make wine. So I think I would have used my time differently then.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had a blast there, so I no regrets. But we did a ton of wine tasting there, and I traveled all over Europe, when I was like 19 years old, and stretched the dollar really, really far. And yeah, I was shocked at how cheap the wine was. And yeah, I've gone on trips. Like we flew into Nice, I think it was,
Mhm.
and we drove to Bordeaux. But after going through
Oh, that's
like
wow.
took
You
10 days.
basically traversed the country.
Yeah, yeah, in a little car. It was fun. It was super cool. That was
Little
before,
Citroen or a Renault.
before we had kids, and we had this one book that had it focused on wine producing estates that had places you could stay, but with no more than like 5 rooms. So not
Oh,
like
wow.
big hotels.
Yeah.
So like little gîtes, kind of like,
Mhm. Yeah.
and every single property grew grapes. And so, yeah, of course we were tasting all around. That was super fun. And, I think Alsace is an amazing place to go taste.
Mhm.
Super cool what they're doing there. It's just visually stunning, and the kind of unique varieties that aren't really grown super
Yeah.
well in California. Um, yeah, Spain, Italy, a bunch. Not so much in Germany. That I'd like to do though.
Yeah.
South America, Argentina. We took a
Yeah.
trip down there and we did some hiking in Patagonia. And on the way down, we went to what is it called? What's that big wine region?
Rioja.
No,
Oh, not Rioja. I'm sorry.
Mendoza, where
Yes,
everybody's
thank
known
you. Yeah.
for back.
There is a La Rioja in Argentina, but you're right. Mendoza is the main region.
But that was fun and exciting. But honestly, it seemed like all the wineries there, they just had a formula. It was like we have our $20 bottle with very little oak, our $40 bottle with like 50% oak, and then our $100 bottle, which is 100% oak. And they all did the same thing. And so they all tasted very similar. It was not the most interesting, to be honest, from like a wine tasting experience. Fun trip, but it just seemed like they had like a cookie cutter approach to it.
Yeah. Interesting. So before we jump to the Carignan, let's just briefly talk about food pairings with the Grenache.
Yeah.
I imagine it's probably very similar to the Counoise. This one has a little more acidity, a little more spice to it. So, this I would love to pair this with the shrimp and sausage jambalaya as well. I think that would be
That would be
tremendous.
great. Yeah, I think this is super versatile with food pairings. Yeah, like anything with just a touch of red sauce. I mean, not to dumb things down, but like pizza and pasta with any red sauce, great. Yeah, even like earthy things like mushroom, like things that we might pair Pinot Noir. I think this is like you could substitute this right there with it. Eating duck, like duck legs, I think would be great. Yeah, we at our home we drink a lot of Sauvignon Blanc and a lot of this Grenache. I just think it's just such an easy food pairing.
Yeah. Jeannie and Mike, if you smoke some tofu, I think this would be a really fun pairing with a like smoked tamari basted tofu would go really well with it as well. So there you go. We gotta throw out some vegan options there for our vegan friends out there. Beautiful. Let's talk about the Carignan, because if there's one thing that has defined the Forgotten Grapes Wine Club over the last 4+ years, it's the sheer amount of old vine Carignan that we have enjoyed as a club. I think it is our most sampled grape, and we've had just some amazing examples, and this is another one. Just a super old vineyard from the Contra Costa County. So how did you come to find this vineyard? How did you decide to add Carignan into your portfolio, Bret?
So I was buying Zinfandel from a vineyard in Contra Costa County, Del Barba Vineyard, and they had these 140-year-old Zinfandel vines, and they had a much smaller quantity of Carignan. And he was like, he's like, all the cool kids are making Carignan these days. Like, you should get on our wait list. He's like, it's only like 8 years.
He's not wrong.
And so I was like, all right, fine, throw me on the wait list. Like, we'll talk. I have no idea what I'm gonna be doing in 8 years.
And he called you 2 weeks later and was like, oh, we've got some. There actually was no wait list.
It was the next year that he called me up and he goes, Bret, I've got this amazing opportunity. He's like, it's not in Del Barbara, it's not this vineyard, but it's another vineyard that he kind of contracts out, like they do the farming for it. They leased it, and it's in the same area. It's in Oakley of all places, where there's all these old Zinfandel and Carignan plantings. My understanding is in the 1880s, the Portuguese community were like kind of the low men on the totem pole, and they were kind of pushed into the Badlands. And the Portuguese planted these Carignan and Zinfandel vines in super sandy soils, which were believed to be unarable.
Yep.
And the vines took, to the surprise of many, and they tapped into their own water source, and they're still here, same ones, 140, we're talking almost 145 years old now. It's wild. Really small yields. When you go out there, it feels like you're at like the desert or the beach, just these kind of rolling sand dunes, just pure sand. And because it's sand, phylloxera can't survive. So they're own rooted as well. So it's Vitis vinifera on top and Vitis vinifera on the roots. It's not grafted.
Vitis ripara or any of those that have been grafting.
So, and they're bush vines, you know, and there's no wires. They're head trained, cane pruned, ancient things. The trunks are like super thick, big shards of bark just falling off it. Yeah, I mean, really, it's a historic California vineyard. Anyways, I got a call from him saying that Tegan Pasalacqua, Sandlands, and didn't he work at Turley? If he's not,
he did. Yeah, he was kind of the one who spearheaded a lot of their super old vine program and got them into Bechtold and some other stuff. Yes.
So he for some reason needed to back out on a contract. I don't know if his like financial situation was tight, but he had to back out for financial reasons. And so the guy who negotiated all the contracts at the other vineyard where I was buying Zinfandel asked me if I wanted to get in on it because there were like 6 tons up for grabs. And I said, okay, I can't take 6. Because that's a lot for working with fruit that you've never tried before.
Well, that's especially with old vine, that's a tremendous yield. I mean, that's a ton of acreage for old vine Carignan.
Yeah, he wanted me to take 5. I think I took 4. So we made a lot of this Carignan. And look at it. Look at the color. Much deeper, darker than the other reds we've tried tonight. And to me, since we are trying to kind of make, more elegant, less bold, big wines, to me, it was a little bit like it didn't fit the brand, and between the acid, the tannin, and the alcohol, this is higher than what we normally do. I think the bottle says 13.8. I just thought it was a little much for our audience. So we did bottle some 100% Carignan. My assistant winemaker kind of pleaded with me to bottle some 100% Carignan. So I did. But the majority of it, I blended with some Grenache, not the Grenache we just tasted, but a Grenache from Clarksburg, which is really pale and light, but fun and lively and expressive. And we did some, like benchmark trials, tasting different blends, and we got to 40% Grenache, 60% Carignan, and that was like the sweet spot. And that wine has done really well. That wine's being poured by the glass at a 2-star Michelin restaurant in San Francisco. Wow. There's a huge following for that. And because that's what I was thinking. It was like, this is going to be more crowd pleasing than this Carignan. But I'm still very glad that we bottled this 100% Carignan, because I think it's like surprising, like how well it's held up. And just smelling it, it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of got some gamey components to it.
Definitely. It's definitely a meaty, compared to the other 2 red wines we've had tonight. This wine is meatier, bigger. It's not over the top, but it is bigger in comparison.
No, it's still old vine Carignan, where it has that like racy acidity, that brightness, but definitely from a tannic standpoint, from a meatier, which to me, old vine Carignan has almost that savory, meaty quality to it, which is why I always, sorry, cover your ears, Gene and Mike, but I always equate it as the best possible steak pairing wine on earth. Like, Don't give me a cab. Don't give me a Merlot. Give me an old vine Carignan to pair with a ribeye or a porterhouse or a nice tomahawk or whatnot.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, totally. I agree with you. This is like certainly in the steak wine category. And this one we destemmed it all, so it's whole berry fermentations, and then we put it in puncheons. We have some 500 liter almost neutral French oak barrels, so large format barrels. And yeah, native yeast fermentation, unfined, unfiltered. Yeah, didn't stir the lees.
No.
Yeah, it's got nice. It's got fruit, but it's also gamey.
It is, but I will say it's got great acidity on the palate and a really long finish. That acidity just kind of lingers. It stays with you. You get more fruit notes on the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really long finish.
Which is what an old vine Carignan should be. So yeah, Larry wants to know, so Carignan is old vine like Zinfandel, and yeah, there's a handful of grapes, typically, or vines, I should say. Typically, they're vines that are a little more heat resistant, that can survive in warmer climates. So things like Grenache, Zinfandel, Carignan, Cinsault, that tend to, when they cross that kind of 35, 40-year-old threshold, that other vines will start to really diminish in their yields and will need to be replaced. The yields will diminish, but they'll still produce outstanding fruit at those ages, as they get into 50, 60, 70, 80 plus years old, and still make some phenomenal wines out there.
The advantage is that, like, when you're in Lodi, where Bechtold is, where they have old vine Zinfandel and Carignan, and in some places, in other places where they have it, you're talking to what Bret said, sandy soil. So they didn't suffer from phylloxera, which means that they were able to live through the period when other vines have since been pulled and replanted due to phylloxera. And the key with old vines is we really have to take care of them. If you really look at the price of what old vine wines are, they're not that expensive considering. No. In fact, you can get Bechtold Cinsault for
$25-30 a bottle.
Yeah, exactly, under $40. And we need to go out and spend money on these because we want to encourage winemakers to maintain these vineyards. They don't produce a lot of fruit. There's not a lot of incentive in terms of yields for winemakers to do it, except for the love and the passion for it. And so we need to support the old vines.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I would much rather an old vine Carignan from 80 to 100-year-old vines be a $100, $120, $150 wine than a 10-year-old, Rutherford Cabernet Sauvignon from somebody who just planted the vines there, but because it's Rutherford and it's hot. Hot meaning not the temperature, but it's the zone of choice at that moment. That's what they're selling the wine at the market price for. So
agreed.
Yeah. It's stunning. So, and I have to ask, one of the things I love about your labeling is that on the back labels, aka the front labels, because that's where you're putting the alcohol content, you're actually putting the specific bottle numbers that I don't imagine you're hand typing those in. So do you have a program or a printer that when you're printing, they're putting those numbers on?
If it was up to me, we would still be hand writing them on, but my wife put a kibosh on that because usually we would be procrastinating. And
it wasn't a family bonding thing where you're watching, Netflix while you're writing numbers on bottles?
We'd get the kids to bed and then we were tired and just want to go to bed. I'm like, nope, we got to hand number these things. And these big rolls of labels would come out. We put them on our dining room table, roll out, I don't know how many we could fit, like 20. And we'd all the way down and then roll out some more and and it was done by hand with the different colors of the thin Sharpies that would match the front label color. I loved it. I thought it was so cool because you guys, I don't even know where you all are, but you're all holding something that I've made with my hands, and then you even have like my handwritten thing like on every single one.
Yeah.
I thought that was so cool. So my wife said, no more, we can't do this, especially because our production increased and there are more and more labels to hand number. So no, now through the power of technology, they can, what do they call that? Serialization. You give them a font and a color and they make it happen.
Wow. Well, it still is just such a great little touch. And there's something about being able to say, like, again, I'm looking at my bottle of Carignan and I'm like, this is 476 and 677. Like, this is, 210 bottles away from the end of this lot. This is the backside. It's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Like, there's no one other bottle like that out there, Each one is unique in that sense. I like that. And we did our best to make it still look handwritten.
And it does. It absolutely does. Whoever is doing your printing is doing a terrific job with that.
Yeah, the font is called Reenie Beanie. It's convincingly handwritten.
I love it. So as we've crossed the 8 o'clock hour, and we'll start winding down because we don't want to take too much of your time. Obviously, you need to get back to your wife since you wasted all of that time with her hand numbering the bottles. You need to make up for that. What are you doing? You mentioned you've got 13 different wines that you're making. Are you still looking for new things out there? You kind of set your portfolio at the moment. What does the future hold for Cote West?
Well, since we don't own any vineyards, it gives us a lot of flexibility. We can be really nimble.
Mhm.
I love it. You can chase trends. Maybe that doesn't sound cool, but like, why not make what's of interest in the moment? So we've added things like orange wines, super popular in the East Bay. We made like an orange wine of Pinot Gris or a Ramato, which is awesome. That's on the website. We make a Pet Nat, which you can use any grape. We use Pinot Gris. We started with Sauvignon Blanc and moved to Pinot Gris, and like that's our #1 bestseller in our tasting room. Bubbles.
Nice.
And
I like the sound of that.
But the newest thing for us is we created a sub label. It's called Cotera. We just released it. You'll see it on the website, but we have very little of it, so only club members can buy it. The Cotera wines will be our fully natural wines. So, all of our wines are minimal intervention. Some of them are natural, and we just felt like we needed to like separate the categories. So it was a little bit of an easier story to tell, both for us and also our distributor when they're like selling wines at restaurant and retail. It gets a little confusing to explain, well, these Cote West wines are natural, but these ones are not. So we have a different, kind of a younger, more fun label called Cotera. If you're on the website where our bottles are there, you'll see 2 that stick out. They're black and white labels. They look very different from the Cote West. And my wife and I like to call it the fun cousin of Cote West.
Nice. So everybody loves a fun cousin.
Yeah. So we've got a Cabernet Pfeffer.
Oh. Yes, I saw that you have that. You get that from the Cienega Valley?
Yes, Gemelli Vineyard. Yep. Which is like a fascinating place. Just really beautiful, amazing limestone and basalt cliffs and soils. It's just like otherworldly out there. And it's all organically farmed. So it's like, legit natural wines. So that's kind of the new direction we're going. And it's not to replace any of the Cote West wines. It's just in addition.
To complement. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How did you decide on, Cabernet Pfeffer and the wines for the grapes for that? Is that kind of going to be like a staging ground to then move up to Cote West, or are you going to keep those separate and truly in the Cotera bubble?
Yeah, we'll keep, and Cotera is not like a sub label and that there's anything inferior with it.
No. But like I'm not, I guess I didn't phrase that right. It's not but sometimes you can experiment with something and go, oh, we like this in the natural. Like, let's, try this in a different style, or I don't know.
I think for us, it's going to be the natural wines, like orange wines, the Pet Nat. Those are eventually going to find their way under the Cotera label. And then the more kind of classic wines that are made in a traditional sense, like the Chardonnay, the Pinot Noir, Cabernet Sauvignon, our rosé of Counoise, those are going to stay under the Cote West label.
Nice.
Kind of like, yeah, two different groups. Yeah, we've got tons of like great feedback on the Cotera wines. Like we have some club members who are like, "Oh, I don't do natural wines. Can't do it. They're so funky and weird." Ours are made well, and there's not funk, even though they're all native yeast fermentations, unfined, unfiltered. They're clean, natural wines.
Nice. Are there any white whales out there? Any varietals or techniques that you're really itching to jump into, or wines that you really want to make and add to the portfolio?
I've always wanted to make a Riesling, but what you hear out there is they're hard to sell because, I mean, not a lot of people drink Riesling. There's a lot of like expectation around it being potentially sweet. But it turns out a ton of winemakers, like the real geeky wine nerds, they love Riesling.
Oh, it's the it and Gruner Veltliner, the sommeliers, choice of wines if they're out there drinking themselves.
So I found Dominique Lafond's private stash of wines, and he only drinks local. It's got to be Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. You'd never see him in public drinking anything but that. But he had the second,
yes, exactly.
He had the second residence, and he had me working on decommissioning a bunch of weird barrels. And I went in this cave. I found this big tarp. So what is this? I lifted it up and I looked around because I was being curious, maybe a little too nosy. And it was his private collection. I know it was his private collection because I saw some names in there that he has close connections to. All Riesling, all German and Alsatian Riesling.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that funny? He had to hide it from people.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Languedoc winery owners destroying trucks of Spanish wines coming across the border, I get it. They get very territorial about their wines over there. So, we have a winemaker here in Paso Robles, Stefan Aseo, who had been making wine in Bordeaux and moved to Paso just so he could blend Syrah with Cabernet, because he knew that would be a fantastic pairing together, but he was not allowed to do that in Bordeaux, and started L'Aventure, and the rest is history around here. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, they're very restrictive there. It's unless you're down in Languedoc, in which case it's the wild west and anything goes. You can plant Pinot next to Grenache, next to Merlot, and everyone's happy.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
So Matt apparently has entered his caveman phase where he can't use proper grammar and said, "All wines delicious whereby."
Well, where are you, Matt? I don't know where you live.
So most of our people are Los Angeles or the Inland Empire, Orange County. That's kind of our basis. So you mentioned you've got a distributor. I don't know if you have some locations in Southern California where wines are available, but
I cannot name the ones in Southern California because I'm kind of unfamiliar with that territory, but they are down there in some places. I'm actually going down to San Diego.
Okay.
They're going to feature me in some wine dinner at some restaurant.
Nice.
That's good.
We're very excited about you being featured at some wine dinner at some restaurant.
Sorry, I don't know the name.
No,
I can find it if you want, but I don't think anybody lives in San Diego, right?
I'm just messing with you. No, nobody in San Diego, but we might have a San Diego. We have a few San Diego people, so they might be watching the replay here. So if you're interested, please
in San Diego, you guys can email me and I'll let you know. It's going to be mid to late March.
Or just visit somerestaurant.com and you'll be able to buy tickets to the Some Wine Dinner.
But the best place to buy the wine is really online. We've got $20 flat rate shipping, which is we basically subsidize the cost of the shipping. If you get up to a case, we cover 100% of the shipping.
Yeah, as somebody who's launching my own sparkling wine brand right now, I know that is incredibly generous and not something that we're offering yet. So good on you for that. Yeah. And then if folks are in the Oakland, Alameda area, you're pretty easy to visit. So how can they come and visit the tasting room and taste through your wines there? Come and meet you if you're working that day.
Yep, totally. Sorry, my laptop is about to run out of juice. So
that's okay.
Yes. Whoop. There we go. There we go.
All right, still got you.
Yeah.
So yes, how can people visit you?
Either come visit us in Oakland or find us online, cotewestwine.com.
And I can vouch for they have a beautiful tasting room. It's in a really interesting industrial park right on the water, right over the bridge from Alameda Island. Really cool place. So definitely, if you find yourself in the East Bay, stop in, go there. And then I also recommend the Pinball Museum on Alameda Island to go kill some hours. It's a good time.
And then hopefully we'll see Bret on June 29th and you can buy his wines then.
Yes. Also a possibility. We don't want to overwhelm him, so be generous.
What is June 29th?
Sorry, that's our Festival of the
Grape.
Forgotten Grapes, our live in-person pouring event that we're doing for.
Yeah, see, Chris and I divided and conquered, so I've sent my emails out to half the wineries and he hasn't sent his. You're on his list.
Yeah, we're doing the first ever wine festival dedicated to lesser known and uncommon wine varietals. So it's a good time. June 29th is when that's happening.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll let you know if you can join us. Great. If not, I know it's a trek down from the Bay Area, so it's all good. But awesome. We don't have a venue yet. Allison is working on solidifying the venue. We should know where it's going to be, but it's going to be in Los Angeles, most likely in either West LA or downtown LA, Matt. So
no, not West LA.
Well, we were talking like Culver City, potentially.
Yeah,
Culver
but
City.
East. It's going to be downtown or local or areas around that.
All right. So yes, easy for anybody to get to, whether you're in Glendale, the Inland Empire, Orange County, West LA, very centrally located.
And Bret, your kids are how old?
They are 7 and 10.
Wow. See, Chris, the perfect excuse is he has to come for work and take them to Disneyland.
It's true. Or Universal. They've got the Harry Potter exhibit thing.
True.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. So, Bret, if you don't mind sticking around for just a couple of minutes, we can unmute everybody. I know if you want to get out, absolutely let us know. We appreciate your time here. But if anybody has any questions for Bret and you want to unmute yourself, go ahead. Or if everybody's being shy, that's okay.
No, wait.
Sandy's going to unmute herself.
Sandy's going to come and speak.
Takes some effort. They have a Tandy 320, so it takes some effort to unmute themselves.
Oh, no, she messaged that she loved all your wines.
Yes, exactly.
Great, cool.
Love them
Thank
all.
you very much.
Awesome.
It's nice to hear.
Well, Bret, thank you so much for being here. This was wonderful. We appreciate your time, and we'll let you get back to your family and definitely be in touch. And we're looking forward to all the fun things that you're putting out with Cote West. And I will be sending out the replay link tomorrow, which will also have all your contact information so that folks can get in touch with you if they want to buy some wines, the website and whatnot. Everybody who's here and everybody watching on the replay, keep an eye out, not next week, but the week after, for our next featured winery of the month, which will be a winery called J Bricks, which is down in Escondido. It is our first San Diego County winery, although they source their grapes from all over California, Santa Barbara, San Ynez Valley, Santa Maria, up in Lodi as well. Similar to what Bret was talking about, they work with a lot of really interesting techniques. So orange wines, pet nats, amphora aging, just really cool stuff, and a lot of interesting, fun, forgotten grapes as well. So keep an eye out for the J Bricks, and they're movie stars too. You're gonna have to read the email to find out more about their movie star presence, which is exciting. But Bret, thank you so much for being here. If folks want to get a hold of you, want to visit the website, what is the URL for them to visit? It's
why don't I type it into this chat? I can do that.
Okay. Well, if you say it too, that way, those who can't see the chat can can do it. So type while you speak.
CoteWestWine.com. I just
Got
put
it.
it in the text.
And that's Cote, C-O-T-E, West, W-E-S-T, wine.com. Perfect. Excellent. All right. Yes, it's technically our second San Diego County winery with Roadrunner Ridge, but that's one that they were in Rainbow, so they're kind of right on the border of Riverside County and San Diego County. This is a true San Diego County winery with J Briggs. But Bret, thank you so much for being here. Your wines were absolutely amazing.
Delicious.
We appreciate it. We appreciate your time. Again, if you want to pick up additional bottles of Bret's wine, please shoot him an email, which we will put on the email tomorrow, or visit CoteWestWine.com.
And do not miss this Counoise, because it'll be rosé next time you see it. But
it's true. Yeah. How many cases of the Counoise do you have left? Because it's got to be dwindling supply at this point.
The Counoise. Oh, I have 24.
There you go. 24 cases. So yeah, just under 300 bottles of that left, and no guarantee that he's going to convince David Mounts to grow more Counoise for him to make a red Counoise. So jump on the train early, folks. I will definitely be picking up more of that. So and you can email Bret, B-R-E-T, at CoteWestWines.com. So thank you so much again. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
have a great night. Thank you all for being here, and we will see you hopefully in February 15th for our virtual tasting with Jody and Emily, the owners and proprietors of J Briggs. All right. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining tonight.
Bye now.
Thanks, Bret.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. It was so delicious.
Yeah,
great.
Wonderful stuff. Fantastic.
Wait, Chris, end the recording.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just going to hit the end, but that works too.